Ladies and gentlemen, welcome again. What a fantastic panel, right? A very, very good topic, gas-based economy. It's a favorite for a lot of people, not just because it's very active. It's also because of the kind of role that it plays in, like I said in the morning, energy access, right? A lot will depend on the pace of growth and development of this country over the next few years. A lot is going to depend on the speed with which we are going to be able to supply energy to the masses, particularly in far-flung areas. And gas is one area that that really touches that aspect very, very well. And the kind of growth that this country has seen, particularly in areas like CGD in the past some years, it's absolutely great, right? And there are other areas too. The pace at which we are also building the infrastructure that we have, not just terminals but pipelines also. It's all very nice. It's no less a success story. The point is that there are other imponderables like very, very volatile prices that we have seen in the past some time. How do you manage that along with the right policy signals, etc.? So that's very broadly what this discussion is going to be about. Let me start this discussion by asking Mr. Srivastava, Director Exploration ONGC, to set the tone and the context of the discussion by telling us, what exactly. So we know that gas is important, but in today's times, when the entire sector is going through a major transition, right, in every way, what exactly is the role of gas? Where do you see gas placed in the entire energy basket, right, over the next few years or so? So where do you see gas placed exactly? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Sudheer. And let me express that extremely privileged to be here with you on this panel, Economic Times. And the topic or the panel, the question that has been asked to me about not only the relevance of gas per se in energy mix, but how does ONGC looks at it to supply and get into a journey wherein cleaner move towards a cleaner fossil fuel is also a thought of. So I would not be talking about those numbers and other things, but we all know why the gas has been gaining importance. Obviously, one point is that it is cleaner 50% as compared to coal, and in comparison to oil, it is about 30% cleaner. So obviously, by moving to gas from the oil from an AG&P perspective, definitely we are contributing towards the cleaning the environment, number one. Number two, the gas as a fuel is easier to handle, and its distribution and usage in a very different form can be there for a smaller consumer to the largest one. Smaller in the sense penetration to the each and every household in terms of CNG and whatever we say, and then CGD definitely then comes in. So the gas as a energy mix is definitely going to gain an edge over oil or coal as the time comes in. And I can give in this perspective, from the production point of view, from the ONGC side, almost it is going to be about reaching to 50% of the total oil and gas production. Now it is moving to the 50%. And per se, if we look at the mandate that has been given to ONGC in a short term, that is up to 24, 25, we will be producing somewhere nearer to about 32%, which from the present level would be about 1.5 times to that. And in terms of the oil, it is about 23% from that mandate. Now, how this is going to be achieved and how this is going to pan in, ADG has already explained those acreages, those facilitation by the government and funding those exploration programs. So one on the journey, the ONGC, what it is doing is, we are trying to increase our acreage holding multiple times. And most of the area which was as a no-go exploration opportunities for going deeper and other place is there that we are going to do that. Third one is we are already in talk with many global majors, and those we have signed MOUs wherein these gas discoveries, which have been increasing in reference to the oil as such per se. Now, the recent one, the basin which has been opened in Madhya Pradesh, that is the Hatta discovery. This is a gas discovery. This basin is in terms of geological context, it is a very, very old basin. It is, we call that as a Proterozoic basin. And those similar basins are going to be opened. So we know that those basins are going to yield gas from the proclivity and the generation potential point of view. Another mega project which ONGC is working on will come on stream somewhere in 23. By that, additional gas would be available in the supply chain. Secondary, then ONGC, looking forward to that, has already created a subsidiary for trading and sourcing gas and supplying that. ONGC has started through gas exchange. Those things are there. ONGC is also supporting initiative of improving the network and joining hands with IGGL project of Northeast, where many things are going on. So ONGC per se has many more projects other than its flagship 98/2, which is on radar. There are Daman upside potential. There is an additional Tapti development. There is an additional infrastructure being created nearer to Ratna. So all those will add to further increase in oil and gas portfolio as a production, more of gas, less of oil. So it would be increasing right from what we said, we are almost going to touch about 50-50, and in the near future it would be ratio somewhere around 40-60. So that is how we look at it. And yeah, I believe this is in reference to the gas as what.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. So I mean, it's great that you've talked about these efforts being made by the company. One of the first thing that comes to our mind, when we're talking about ONGC's production is, that the fields are aging and there is a slight, plateau there, and so there is a need to perhaps look at more of EOR, etc. One very, very common question that a lot of people ask in this context is that somewhere we perhaps should have gone for more aggressive exploration, right? A few years back, right? Otherwise, we perhaps would not have missed that bus. There is a view like that. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, so certain point was touched upon by ADG in his address. Now, if you look at this scenario of exploration or the aggressiveness or the missing of the aggressiveness of it, which is being thought of, initially when that new exploration licensing policy, which had 9 rounds, the biggest problem with that was the areas were carved out by the BGH. And that area may have prospectivity, may not be, or it is just per se for area sake, number one. Number two, now we have realized that a revenue sharing mechanism is probably better than production sharing mechanism, wherein those cost recovery and related incidentals came into the being. And then the biggest issue what emerged for ONGC was end of the nomination, where the larger areas, I can give you perspective. At one point of time, we were having about 5 lakh square kilometer of exploratory acreage. And with the progression of NELP, as more and more were surrendered, because it was mandatory surrender. So finally, by the end of the NELP round, we came to almost 1.2 lakh. A big drop of almost 1/4. And then what happened? Then came a hiatus of 6 years. From 2010 to 2016, nothing came in, nothing was there. Now OALP started. Since this was a new kind of policy, new kind of game rules, and wherein much effort was, much weightage was on revenue share rather than on work program. So without committing any work program, still if you try to give more share to government, you can win the block. So that was what resulted in debacle for ONGC. And then subsequently, all those new rounds came in, and now you must have been seeing that during those new rounds, we were having only the NOCs as a major player there. Nobody has participated. However, further facilitation is being made on every front. I would say this kind of initiative from the government side was not visible. A clear-cut mechanism was institutionalized, wherein the government, the DG and the ministry worked in with all other related Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Defense, and then Space, and then others. And then lot of area has been freed now. So 96,000 square kilometer has just been freed from the no-go, and additionally it is going to be freed. And out of that 96,000, I can say that ONGC is going to submit an EOI of about 45,000 during these next two rounds. So as far as the aggressiveness is concerned, the lack of it, I have explained why it was. And notwithstanding that, during the next 3 years, we had drafted and committed to the tune of about 31,000 crore towards the exploration, and that would be targeted in a systematic manner, looking for the mature ones, looking for the new areas, looking for technology induction and other things. So many things are there on the table, and many things are going to happen within the next 2 to 3 years.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the great answer. Let me turn to Mr. Sanjay Kumar, from IGL. IGL is nothing less than a success story, right? And the way it has gone for expansion of projects across different regions, it's absolutely wonderful, right? One of the first things that I want to ask you is, it's a very, very common question. I'm sure you would have faced it earlier also. There is an unprecedented kind of volatility that is there in the global market for LNG right now, right, in terms of prices. And at some level, it is going to, impact the way CGD projects are executed, implemented, etc., etc. What kind of impact do you see there? How do you manage that? Where are we headed? I mean, ultimately, the factors that are responsible for the volatility, nobody really knows, where exactly it's headed. But very broadly speaking, what are your thoughts on it?
So that is the problem actually. You see, when people were bidding for 9th and 10th round, the prices were in the range of $5-6, and the APM and non-APM prices were in the range of 1.79 to maybe say $3.23. Today, those prices have changed because of the problem of the the calculation period or the calculation basket. The volatility in the world market is actually affecting the CGD entities directly. So the CNG and PNG gas that they consume, that basically the price of that gas which comes from ONGC and in some places from OIL, they are calculated based on the four indices of the world, which is Henry Hub, then the Canadian market, then European market and Russian market. Now, the price is actually a weighted average of these four indices, and they are calculated for last 12 months with a delay of 3 months. Now, most of you may be knowing this. Now, this is not only creating problem today, it is likely to affect the CGD entities in coming more than 1 year, in fact, because the calculation period that will be in use even in the month of say April 2023, that is still going on, and it affects the CGD entities in two ways. The first one is the price of gas that is supplied to them for CNG, PNG. And the second one is that for industrial and commercial use, they are actually buying RLNG or HTHP gas or some other free market gas. Now, all these world gas market movements, they impact even the price of HTHP gas, which is traded on exchange, or let's assume that there are, say, CBM gas is bid out. That also the price actually is compared to the world gas market, because that is the direct replacement of regasified LNG. So this is one aspect. The other aspect is that the RLNG that or the any other gas that you are buying, the foreign exchange component is also coming in the play. So there also from 74 rupees we have now moved to 78 rupees, and the impact is 5-6% or more than that. And finally, the price of crude oil may have gone up by 60-70%, whereas the world market or the APM, non-APM price has gone up by much more than that, maybe 150% in last or 200% in last 1 year. So there is this impact of alternate fuel comparison. So there will be very little new conversion of existing vehicles to CNG. In fact, I was talking to some of the large car makers in the country last week, and they told that the inquiries of CNG vehicles have gone down because the petrol price went down recently, if you recall, whereas CNG prices are still at the highest level in last many years. So that I would not say that viability is in question. I would not say that, because the CGD entities still believe this is a temporary phase and it should get over soon. But for the period up to next year, middle of next year or towards the end of next year, the challenge would be there. The well-capitalized company, the well-operating company who got good reserve, they will sail through. But some of the new players will find it challenging to actually expand during this period because of these problems. These are my views.
So don't we have enough hedging mechanisms to basically cushion this impact of this volatility in the available?
See, out of the gas that we are selling in IGL, about 7.5 or 7 million cubic meter per day, 80% or slightly more than that is CNG, PNG. Now that is priced based on the mechanism that I just a few minutes ago described. It's very difficult to hedge that. If you have a direct contract of, say, Brent, certain percentage, say 10% of Brent, then I can hedge it directly. And if you have some Henry Hub contract, you can hedge it directly. But if you have that mechanism, although it is a very well documented, well made policy, but it's we did talk in the past to some players. It's very difficult to translate into a risk-free basis swap or something like that in the case of hedging. Even if you are able to do it, any hedging is actually it reflects the current market. So today, if I go and buy Brent contract, it will actually cost me $120 only, even though you will have some contracts of say $100 going forward. But those who are selling that contract to me, the paper contract, they would rather view it with circumspection. So hedging it's slightly difficult in that scenario. And most of the CGD players may not have direct LNG contract. It's very difficult for them to manage LNG volume because of their very little volume that they are handling. LNG terminal would ask them to vacate the cargo or to higher evacuation rate than what they can afford. That issue is there.
As far as the revision of the pricing mechanism is concerned, the pricing formula is concerned, I know that has been there, that demand has been there for quite some time, and we are yet to see where it's headed. But my other question to you, very quickly, if I can ask you, is I'm sure the kind of aggressive expansion IGL has seen, right? It would have come with a lot of learning. If you could share some typical issues that CGD projects face on the ground, and how do you deal with them?
See, the biggest issue with CGP is that our, whatever we are selling, whether it is gas or CNG, is compared with the alternate fuel. Actually, the narrative needs to change for the CGD industry. We are selling a premium fuel. At your home, if because of my pipeline connectivity at your home, you are able to do away with LPG cylinder. And this is no offense to anybody who is selling LNG here, because we are all from oil and gas industry. We are giving you so much of comfort. This is a premium fuel. Even if it is sold at a price higher than LPG, it should be marketable. So that narrative is, needs to change. Other than that, on the operational or capex level, there are few very important issues like permissions. Uh, it varies based on the state. In some state you have to give money and they will restore. See, I'll do some digging for laying my pipeline. But in some states, they don't allow us to restore. They will charge some money. In fact, they give us permission only after we pay that kind of money. But thereafter, the permission takes the restoration takes a lot of time. It happens after 6 months, 1 year, and the whole society continues to blame us. So that kind of problem is there. Other than that, we are so it is basically permission and some sort of preferential treatment for our facilities. Like we set up CNG station, we set up regulating station, we set up field regulating station, then we are laying pipeline. For all these, if we are getting some kind of help, it will help to expand. Let's not forget, 98% of the population is actually covered by, theoretically covered by gas. But in order to bring it to actually 98%, we need to be able to easily lay the gas pipeline and transport or that gas to the actual consumer. This is not like electronics where we put a tower and we are able to cover 3 kilometers around us. We actually there also they have to lay some cable, but there are some pockets where they can reach without any cabling. So basically it is permissions, some the preferential treatment for our facilities, and these permissions, that is another story. Some state, if you compare the state where the lowest rate for permission and the highest rate, the ratio is about 10 times. So that you can make out that some states are very helpful in giving us, they facilitate our working, whereas some states we'll request them rather to change their rates and RR rate, etc., so that it is easier for us to work.
Yeah, thank you for that answer, sir. Let me turn to Mr. Mehrotra here. You are in the business of implementing these large pipelines, for example, and that's very critical from the point of view of the larger national vision on gas that we have. We have been talking about having a gas-based economy for many years now, and every now and then we see these great numbers in terms of investments, that's going to be poured into it, and which is absolutely fine. But then the point is, how would you assess the pace at which we are, looking at this entire vision or mission or target or whatever you call it, right? Are we taking the right steps? Are we moving in the right direction? Do we need to do more, etc.? Yeah, very broadly.
Sure. Okay. Basically, what we need to understand first is that the Indian GDP is going to grow at, say, minimum 8%, and the World Economic Forum also talked about it. And when the GDP is growing at 8%, your energy demand will grow at 6-7% broadly as a thumb rule. Now, where this energy is going to come from, we need to understand. And all forms of energy, whether it is coal, whether it is gas, whether it is renewables, all have to play its part. Now, we all know that we've been talking of gas a lot in terms of what needs to be done in upstream, midstream, and downstream. The share of gas in energy basket is only reduced, and hoping now the trend will reverse. But as of last 4-5 years, it's gone down to 6-7%, which is a cause of worry. And why I say it's a cause of worry, because always gas has been, and somewhere after coal, the era of gas never came, right? Why I say that is everything went on to renewables, and gas in India and worldwide has been talked of as a transition fuel. And that's where I have a problem with that statement, that look, how can gas be a transition fuel it is a fuel in itself, and kind of it should play its own part. And that's where the gap arises, that a comprehensive plan doesn't exist. And because everybody started saying that the gas is transition fuel, right? Now, so what we need to do is first reclassify gas as, say, look, it's a fuel which will here to stay. The share of gas energy basket may not be 15%, but should go to 10, 12%. Even if it goes to 10, 12% in next 10, 15 years, the absolute terms, the kind of gas molecules you need, the kind of transportation pipelines you need. CGD network, good thing is all awards have been given, but gas has to reach there. We need to expand, and some problems we have thought of. So we have to really see that, look, we need to develop a plan where we say gas, I like to talk of gas as a deemed renewable, and because gas can play its own role in decarbonization and kind of hard to abate sectors like power generation from coal. Yes, coal will remain, play its part. Manu said that some time back, but it will play its own part. You can gasify coal, and so many other things can be done. And also in your mobility, gas has to play. I know EVs are there, but again, mobility, gas has to play a large role, and especially LNG in large trucking units. So all this, I see a kind of pace is slow. As a kind of energy expert, I like government and regulators to do more on this, and we can talk of details in each sector, so that we really have a vision to make it possible. We talk a lot, but a lot of work on ground is not being done. So once we do that, then only we'll see the share of gas going from current 6-7% to say 12% or 15%. But a more comprehensive plan is required. And say, as question is, the pace is slow, and we need to do much more than that.
Okay, yeah. Perhaps it's about perception, but so we have had these stranded assets in the past, and I'm sure we're now past that stage, right? So that's what I'm asking. If you can, tell us from a viability point of view. There are no questions on viability, right now, or do you think we are still struggling with those age-old questions of viabilities, etc.? Because one thing that immediately comes to the mind is these high prices, etc.
Yeah.
And it doesn't let you really plan well or go aggressive.
Yeah.
So what exactly should we do to make that a thing of the past? As an investor, how would you look at it?
Okay, and let me.
I mean, from a policy point of view, for example,
take a step back and say, okay, for any commodity to be kind of sold, there are 3 A's basically, which I say. The commodity should be available, it should be accessible and affordable, right? And then only it can be sold. So when we talk of availability, first we talk of availability of gas in India. What can be done? A lot of reforms have been done in upstream, and we've talked of that. A lot of good work has been done. With kind of some increase in energy prices, you will see now exploration being started in deep water and ultra deep water blocks. It will make them viable. So a lot of new gas will be available in next few years. Yes, the gas prices across the world went from $2 to $35. I'm talking about spot prices. That's given a shock to a lot of economies, in India in particular, because of oil and gas prices. We'll see higher inflation, and there will be impact in short term, but we need to live with that. So upstream, obviously, I've always been kind of a person who likes open markets, although the downstream customers may not like it. That yes, first you free up upstream from any marketing or pricing kind of shackles, and say you free that up, and then allow the market to determine the price, not the pseudo formulas. Once that is done, you will see more exploration coming. We also see a lot of terminals coming, but that will increase. Second comes accessibility. Accessibility, there are 2 elements to it. One is transportation. India still has around 20,000 kilometers of pipeline, roughly. Compare that with US, 1 lakh kilometer plus. We still need to do huge. We need to think big in gas also, and say we lay another 50-60,000 kilometers of pipeline to reach all corners of India. And a lot of companies can do that. For that, we should have right mechanism, the right risk and reward kind of mechanisms with regulators can help. And Second part of accessibility is city gas, which I think our friends will talk of. A lot of licenses have been given. We've heard there are ROU issues. Laying pipeline is not easy. There's a lot of delays which happens. Skilled manpower is not there. It looks a lot of unemployment, but when you go out and you really want to get the skilled manpower for laying these CGD networks, you don't have that. So a lot needs to be done in this. And third is affordability, kind of. And when I say affordability, yes, prices, energy prices will be high in next 6-7 quarters. That's because of what happened across the world after COVID. Demand suddenly came up, the supply was down, as well as to kind of top it, Russia attacked Ukraine, and especially for the gas, a lot of changes happened because of which gas prices have shot up. Now, we have to, as a country, kind of live with these high energy prices. As far as power is concerned, power has to play a role. If you're talking of high renewable share in the whole power mix, gas has to play its role as a peaking station. I'm hoping that a lot of these stranded powers come back on stream, and somewhere on the DISCOM side, some reforms need to be done so the direct subsidy goes, and then these power because at some stage gas-based power has to come back. There's no other way other than bringing them back into the whole power mix kind of. Yeah. So a lot of these things need to be done in each of this segment. We need to start thinking big and plan big for next 10 years for gas to play a real role. And we have to get used to, and slowly we are getting used to little high energy prices. I think gone are those days when you get gas is $2-3. And I think customers will slowly get used to that. And then we definitely will see gas playing a much larger role.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And all of this, basically, all of this discussion brings us to the point of, do we have the right policy, right signals from a policy or regulatory side of things to be able to implement the larger vision of whether it's 15% share of gas or, using gas as a bridge fuel from the point of view of climate commitments, etc., etc. I want to ask Abhilesh here, how do you look at it? What's your view? Do you think we need to do more on policy side to successfully kind of implement, the larger vision statements like these?
Yeah, so in fact, it's a very good question. Something which policy leader have decided. I just give you some ballpark numbers. So there was a vision, hydrocarbon vision 2025. So there was a hydrocarbon vision 2025 came in 2000, where we said 20% gas share, and we continued with this for so many years. And in 2013, the wise men say also that 12 years have passed, 13 years have passed, we are still at 6%. And then the target date was revised to 2030. Now in 2016, 17, again people started saying that still 5%, 6%, what do we do? So target revised downwards to 15% till 2030. 7 years have passed, we have reached to 2022. Target is still 15%, but how do you achieve that 15%? So the point here is that vision from the topmost authority of the country is very clear, that we want a gas-based economy. But what happens, and this is something to ponder, and I'm not going to give any solution here, not my suggestions, but somewhere during this entire chain where the policy formation has to happen and thereafter implementation has to happen. And then the things started getting blurred. We really don't know what is happening. Something somewhere is wrong. That is why these goalposts are changing. That is why we are not able to reach what we should be doing, what we should be attempting. Maybe 5 things more we have to do. Just awarding the concession of city gas covering 90% area, 100% area. Is it going to solve the problem? Answer is clearly no. Has to be done in a concentrated manner, some 4 or 5 things at a go, which means these dreams are realized. Otherwise, after 4 years, you will see that this moves to 2035, 2030, or people will stop talking about the date as such. So I think lot many things have to be done on this.
Are you saying that there is too much emphasis on setting targets, moving them around, and less emphasis on getting things worked out on the ground? Is that what you're saying?
So, see, from our company side, this is a long-term infrastructure development, and we are committed to it. Almost like in next 5 years, we will be spending 17,000 crore rupees in the infrastructure development. We have done quite a significant amount of infrastructure development last 6 months after the COVID situation eased out. So it's a long-term game, but my simple thing is that now, the present situation that people have talked about, what has happened in the world market now, these are the exceptional time. And exceptional time would mean exceptional measures are required. Simple example, in the country today, there is a huge power shortage. And anybody can sell in the exchange 20-25 rupees power. But the Ministry of Power took a wise decision to restrict the ceiling to 12 rupees. Beyond 12 rupees, you cannot sell power. So, and at 12 rupees also, producers are making significant amount of money. So some exceptionals are required. You can't just see that these times you just leave everything open and then people who are the CGD industry or any other person who is developing the infrastructure figure out what do you need to do. That's not going to work. During this COVID, exceptional measures have been taken by the government. They gave austerity like 1 lakh crore package, like 2 lakh crore package. Some people came up with $1 trillion package. This is the time again when some exceptional measures has to be taken to see that at least for next 1 or 2 years, when this situation is continuing, some kind of a hand holding is required. Otherwise, again, in next two years, nothing is supported, then you are back by 5-6 years more.
Okay, so by giving that example of 12% from the power sector, you're basically saying that here is a problem and you have to respond to it immediately to make life easier for the stakeholders involved, rather than letting it linger on. That's very broadly what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Thanks, Abhilesh. A very, very thought-provoking comment there. Let me say. Let me turn to Matiur here. Mr. Matiur Rahaman from Locusview. Locusview is broadly a tech company, right? And here is a sector called the natural gas sector in India, which has for many years now lacking the right kind of technology investments that should have happened for rapid growth. Now, I want to ask you, what are typically the ways in which technology can help us close pipeline projects, and particularly, the kind of these are basically linear projects, linear infrastructure projects, and like I think Mr. Sanjay Kumar was referring to it. Particularly when you're dealing with state utilities or entities, there's a lot of delays, right? You face a lot of delays. So can technology come to the rescue? If yes, how?
So thank you for the question, Sudheer, and good evening, everyone. So there are two types of delays. One is the regulatory related, and like Mr. Sanjay was talking about it, right? Permissions related. So that's not the area that we are addressing at the moment, right? This is a lot to do with governance and efficiencies on that side. The area that we are addressing is that how can we bring in a lot of efficiency in the construction process itself. Now, for us to be able to tackle that issue, we need to understand where are the bottlenecks, where exactly are you spending more time, what are the issues in construction. So at a high level, it's a 3-step process. You have pre-field activities where you do your design and planning. Then you have activities on the ground where you put your assets, collect a lot of information about the asset. And then you have activities after you have laid your assets, basically closing out a project. Now, our understanding is that in most cases, not all, in most cases, the processes are manual. So I'll just go take an example. It's a design. Now, is the design today done on a piece of paper, or do I have a system which gives me a design output, let's say in a piece of PDF? Then when it comes on a piece of PDF, what do I do with that? I go onto the ground and I need to execute it. Now, if I have a design change, then I might have to go back to office, and there's a lot of back and forth that happens. We lose time in that, right? So technology can solve that. I can solve the design change problem from days to minutes. One example of in the pre-field area. There are multiple examples in that. Now, when you're moving into the field, on-field activities when you do, now are we writing on piece of papers? Are we typing on something? Again, in that we run into two kind of risks. Risk in, it takes a lot of time. We are piling on a piece of papers. Second risk is the chances of occurring a lot of errors in the data collection process. Now, then technology can come in handy here. You use barcode scanners and you can just collect your data in seconds. So you collect high accuracy, high quality data in first instance, again in minutes. Now I'm going to the closing side of the project. Reporting. We understand in the industry it takes a lot of time. If you say, give me a pipe book, it takes 2 to 3 months to generate a pipe book. That's our understanding. But ideally, it should happen on the same day. The day I have laid the pipe, I should have my pipe book ready. Technology can help you there. So you don't spend 2 to 3 months in generating pipe book. Technology can help you generating reports in like a click of a button. So technology can play a very crucial role in creating a digital thread between the planning to close out stage, bringing in a lot of efficiency in the system, and thereby helping utilities save a lot of time in the construction process.
Okay. Can you very quickly give us perhaps maybe 1 or 2 examples of how do you use digital tools, advanced digital tools for things like CED projects, and how does it work on the ground?
So look, just to add to that thing, right? I was saying, how can it help scale? That's the question. How can digital tools? So let's take an example. Let's say you have a site where construction is going on. Let's say you have 5 sites and 1 inspector to inspect. And in scaling, you suddenly have, let's say, 10 sites or 15 sites. What do you have to do? Do we need 5 more inspectors to be hired and sent to the ground? That's a time-consuming process. But then if you take technology, it can help you do remote inspections. You can automate most of your QA, QC processes using technology. So that's how it can support scale. Right? Another example of this could be, how do you assign work on the ground, manual versus digital? Now, am I writing letters like we used to do in our school days? We used to send write letters to our parents in England letters. So that's basically manually assigning tasks on the ground. But we have moved on from that stage. Now we send emails. Similarly, work order creation and sending it to ground. If I'm doing manual, I'm consuming a lot of time. It cannot support scale. That's when you have to bring in technology that I can create, assign, and manage hundreds of work orders, again in maybe in minutes or hours. So that's 2 examples. Just to add to that, because you talked about scale, honestly, the scale thing is not only about today, that we have to like lay down the construction, our networks 20, 25, 30 years down the line, especially when we are laying MDP plastic pipelines, we will have a mammoth task to replacing those pipelines. Now, if our data is manually collected today, I doubt that we will know what to replace, where to replace, and that will also be done at a scaled phase. So, but if you collect information digitally today, you exactly know where and what needs to be replaced. So it's not only about doing it faster, bringing in a lot of efficiency. It's also about planning for the future that utilities should look at, construction management platforms.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Matiur, for that comment. A lot of technical jargon there for a lot of people, no doubt. But then, yes, it's very important to understand that. Before we close this, I wanted to. I know we don't have time, and Nitin is giving me really bad looks, but maybe take 1 or 2 questions. If there is anyone in the audience who wants to take a few, who want to ask something very quickly. No. Okay, fine. So let me wrap it up then. An absolutely fantastic discussion. There are multiple points that we covered here. We started with Mr. Srivastava talking about how gas is all clean and easy to handle. So which is absolutely so you have the benefit with gas, and that is the reason why it also has that edge over oil or coal, right? And that's going to be there. And he has also talked about ONGC's efforts and why revenue sharing business model is the way to go. etc. We had again great comments by Mr. Sanjay Kumar, who talked about why there's a lot of volatility and the kind of impact it would have on the CGD sector, because one of the reasons is that the time of the bidding, prices were very different from what they are now, right? So, and somewhere that has to be factored in. He's also saying that perhaps we need a revision of the pricing formula, right? There's a need to take a relook at it. The word revision is added by me, of course, but you said that there is an issue with the pricing formula, right?
Sometimes it helps CGD entities. That is what I was telling you. Yeah.
The industry has been looking for revision in those formula for quite
Well,
some time.
yeah, the industry has been demanded for that revision. Yeah, and so that very broadly it. And we had Mr. Mehrotra talking about a very valid point. Perhaps he's saying that we should not look at gas as transition fuel, right? It's perhaps unfair to use that term, because here's a fuel which is going to stay for long, right? Again, a lot of food for thought for all of us. He's saying what we need to do really going forward, as far as these looking at gas as infrastructure projects is concerned, we need to look at upstream reforms more closely, perhaps, and we need to look at, and when that's done, we'll have more of new gas available, etc. So that's going to ease life significantly. But he's also highlighting the need to have more of skilled manpower and other factors as we go forward with our implementing our CGD licenses. Then, of course, Abhilesh is saying that, somewhere something is wrong, right? And he's saying that the vision is there, but there is, something wrong with perhaps the targets, how we are looking at them. On ground, when we are implementing projects, right, we need to perhaps be more circumspect in terms of how we are implementing them. We require some exceptional measures. That's one takeaway that I have from his comments. Matiur, of course, is saying that a lot of this can change and will change with technology. That can be used for bringing in a lot of construction efficiency, a lot of things like remote inspections, for example, and how they can be used to have better expansion projects implemented. So that's very broadly it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your time, and I'm sure all of you would have got a lot of takeaways from this particular discussion. So thank you for your time. Please carry on. Thanks.